Video games have always had multiplayer, and playing them with friends is one of the most fun things you can do. So that's why I decided to bring you today the best couch co-op games for PS4 to play with your friends. Mortal Kombat 1 revamps the storyline of this enduring fighting game series, with all the characters you know and love reimagined in a new timeline. This makes for a brilliant and violent romp, turning unlikely pairs into firm allies in a high-quality story mode. Once you're done with that, the game has plenty more to do. Experiment with the new Kameo system, play the board game-like invasion mode, and get a bit more lore on all the fighters in the arcade-like tower mode. While the core fighting hasn't evolved all that much, this is still arguably the best Mortal Kombat yet, and will certainly be supported for a long time. The Baldur's Gate series has always been popular, but the franchise's third mainline installment helped to bring it to a whole other level. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the best role-playing games of all time and is made all the better by the inclusion of a split-screen local co-op mode. Players can also experience the title via online multiplayer, though this is arguably not as fun as doing so with a friend or loved one by one side. The game is full to the brim with content, so those looking for something to while away the days should definitely consider checking it out. King of Fighters 15 is very much a return to form for the long-running SNK series. The 3-on-3 fighter boasts a sizable character roster and a respectable suite of gameplay modes, complete with smooth rollback netcode, should you decide to test your skills online. A pleasingly robust fighting game package. As far as indie game darlings go, they don't come much bigger than The Binding of Isaac. Together with the likes of Undertale, Celeste, and Super Meat Boy, it played a hugely important role in the popularization of indie titles, while also helping to bring about a resurgence of sorts for the roguelike genre. For those who are yet to play Edmund Macmillan's masterpiece, The Binding of Isaac, Repentance is a great place to start. Not only is it the perfect entry point for new players, but also a great way for longtime fans of the title to rediscover what makes The Binding of Isaac so special. With 4-player local co-op support, it can be just as fun with friends as it is solo, if not more. Gearbox's popular looter shooter is back in typical style with Borderlands 3, and it looks and plays better than ever on PS5. While it doesn't innovate on older entries all that much, the third game in the franchise is probably the best. Improved gameplay makes the act of firing weapons a joy, there's a ton of variety in quests and guns, and that signature love or hate humor is very much in place. It shines brightest on Sony's current-gen machine, too, thanks to boosted visuals and up to 120 frames per second on the right display. There are few better co-op shooters out there. This is an absolute blast with friends, whether playing locally or online. Call of Duty: Modern Warfare 3 picks up right where its predecessors left off, providing high-octane gunplay and one of the best FPS multiplayer experiences around. The single-player campaign is pretty decent too, as one might expect from a Modern Warfare title, but, as is so often the case with Call of Duty games, it finds itself playing second fiddle to the multiplayer madness. Unfortunately, split-screen support in Call of Duty: Modern Warfare 3 is a little lackluster at launch, with players only able to play in certain game modes while utilizing the feature. Whether or not the developers will allow split-screeners to play in more game modes in the future remains to be seen, though what's on offer at present can still be enjoyable when approached with the right attitude. Rocket League is available on pretty much every system going, but it deserves inclusion here because it's just that good. With gameplay that's easy to learn but hard to master, it's a great title for teaming up with a good friend and trying to bring home those wins. The great thing about split-screen multiplayer is that you can also choose to go toe-to-toe with other players and teams online, provided your co-op partner has an active PlayStation Plus account they can sign into on your console. As with any online competitive game, communication is key, and having your teammates sitting right next to you is going to be much more effective than chatting over the internet. With the multiplayer experience on offer in Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time have been better if the developers had allowed players to play together simultaneously? Absolutely! Even so, the fact that a co-op multiplayer mode was implemented at all is still a nice bonus, particularly for a platformer of this quality. The game implements a controller swapping system, with players handing over the pad after reaching a checkpoint or dying. There's also a more head-to-head oriented mode that sees players racing to reach checkpoints or break as many boxes as possible, though this is again all handled with a single controller, meaning that players will have to sit and wait their turn. Some of the most immersive games to lose yourself in belong to the survival genre, so what better place to spend with a friend than a prehistoric island? Helplessly deserted on a desolate beach, you'll find yourselves lost on a dinosaur-infested island. The open-world environment encourages exploration and domination, as the landscape is designed to have you killed by all forces of nature and requires adept skills in being able to respond to your surroundings. Ark: Survival Evolved has it all, from DIY weaponry, battles against prehistoric monstrosities, and a sophisticated building mode. The fact that the game's main critiques revolved around its difficulty and requirement for you to expect heavy material scavenging and grinding makes it all the more enjoyable to share the experience with a friend. Much like Supermassive Games' other narrative-driven survival horror games, the Dark Pictures anthology, The Devil in Me supports both local and co-op multiplayer. In a welcome change though, the experience ends up being a lot better for those playing locally, with support for up to 5 players as opposed to just 2. Granted, 4 of those players will be sat doing nothing for most of the time, but it's nice to have the option of playing together nonetheless. Each player can be assigned to a different character, or multiple characters if there aren't enough players, and will be handed the controller whenever the time comes to make a decision or act. One wrong move can lead to their own character's death, or, in some cases, the death of one of the other player's characters instead. It's this near-constant sense of jeopardy that makes the game so enjoyable and a must-play for any horror fan. Some multiplayer formulas truly stand the test of time. Mario Kart, World of Warcraft, and Counter-Strike have each nailed the vital components of how to maintain an active and loyal fanbase. Nazi zombies are another quintessential entry into this list, and deservedly so. The endless rounds of defense and attack in the series continue to sustain relevance today, and its inclusion in Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War is no exception. The ultimate sleepover party game for any aughts kids, Cold War is the perfect antidote to the subsequent lack of split-screen FPS co-op games. Given the massive popularity of the Demon Slayer anime, a video game adaptation always seemed like something of a certainty. Likewise, that it ended up taking the form of an arena fighter probably didn't surprise too many people, given that the fighting game subgenre so often goes hand in hand with anime adaptations. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba: The Hinokami Chronicles isn't the best fighting game to come out of 2021, but it's still a decent enough game. Fans of the anime should really enjoy what the game has to offer, more so if they experience it with a like-minded friend or family member as opposed to on their own. It feels like Supermassive Games has been trying to hit the heights of PS4 Classic Until Dawn for years now, and never quite reaching it. However, the third entry in its Dark Pictures anthology, titled House of Ashes, definitely comes closest. Much like previous efforts, you'll control a number of characters, dictating their actions and dialogue choices. This time around, there's a horde of ancient monsters buried underneath the sandy desert of Iraq. Get some friends over and you'll have a whale of a time. Though its single-player experience ultimately failed to live up to the high standards set by some of its predecessors, Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed is far from a bad game. In fact, for better or worse, it's an incredibly faithful recreation of the 2006 original, bringing crypto-kicking and screaming into the modern era of gaming. The game supports 2-player local co-op, with each player given their own part of the screen as well as a shared mini-map and objectives list. Though it's pretty normal for a game to be better when played with a friend, few benefit quite as much as Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, with its split-screen co-op mode helping to turn what would otherwise be a bang-average experience into a truly great one. In June 2023, the Legions of Hell rose up once again as Diablo IV, one of the most legendary co-op games of all time, returned to the screen for a new installment. Part 4 features an open-game world for the first time, 5 classes, Barbarian, Sorceress, Druid, Hunter, and Necromancer, world bosses, and, of course, tons of the finest loot. Dirt 5 comes from a Codemasters team made up of many Evolution Studios alumni, giving this off-road racer a slight MotorStorm flavor. The festival vibes are alive and well here, with colorful presentation and a great soundtrack providing the background for a varied and fun racing calendar. Unlike its Dirt Rally cousins, this game is unabashedly arcadey, putting the emphasis on sliding sideways through the mud, across the ice, and into clouds of dust. An unintrusive storyline featuring characters voiced by Nolan North and Troy Baker carries you through the single player, while a level editor and some neat multiplayer modes are waiting for you too. A slick, well-presented racing game with real energy. few franchises did more for the beat-em-up genre than Double Dragon, with Billy and Jimmy kicking countless asses throughout the late 80s and early 90s. In the years that followed, however, the series followed the genre into a deep slumber, which, despite numerous attempts to revive it, would end up lasting several decades. Fast forward to the year 2023, and the franchise returned with Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons, a roguelite spin-off from developer Secret Base. Released across multiple platforms, the game proved to be a hit with both players and critics alike. Like so many of the games that came before it, it supports couch co-op and is a must-play title for fans of the long-forgotten genre. Like many other long-running sports sims, EA's FIFA franchise is often criticized for its lack of innovation, and for good reason. For years it has felt like the franchise has been treading water, though that's not really the case with the series' last few entries. The hypermotion technology used in FIFA 22 and FIFA 23 helped the games feel like true next-gen titles and made them some of the most realistic football games ever made, both in terms of their mechanics and their visuals. EA Sports FC 24 takes this one step further with Hypermotion V and offers great local multiplayer support to boot. Up to 4 local players can play the game offline, while 2 can play together while connected to PSN. Unlike some other co-op games with online multiplayer, only one of these players will need to have a PS Plus account, with the other able to join as a guest by pressing the triangle button. Local co-op works in just about every game mode, including Volta, Kickoff, and the microtransaction-heavy Ultimate Team. Released in July of 2022, Escape Academy is a puzzle game in which players are placed into the shoes of students who are training to become escape room masters. The game can be played by a single person, but becomes infinitely more enjoyable when tackled with a friend. Players can either do this over the internet or while sitting together on the couch, as this is one of the many split-screen games on the PS5. There are numerous escape rooms found throughout the game, each of which is based on a different academic subject. This makes it great for local co-op encounters, as the strengths of one player can make up for the weaknesses of the other. Granted, some of the puzzles are a little too easy, while others are perhaps just a tiny bit too hard, but the complete package remains a fun one when all said and done. The last FIFA game to actually have FIFA in the title, FIFA 23 sees the branding go out on a relative high, with some welcome gameplay adjustments further refining the annual formula. And look, we've learned to never expect sweeping changes to EA Sports' yearly football sim, but at this point, the overall package is hard to fault, and FIFA 23 is arguably the most finely tuned installment in recent times. Having helped to spark the Battle Royale trend that just doesn't seem to want to go away, Fortnite has grown from strength to strength. It's now one of the most popular and most profitable video games of all time, having generated billions of dollars in revenue for its developer and publisher, Epic Games. Fortnite's split-screen mode is beautifully presented, although some may have preferred having a slightly wider field of view rather than character images. That said, it's arguably a far better solution than simply having black or empty space on the screen as many other developers opt for. Both players are able to take part in the Battle Royale insanity online, and it's even possible for one player to leave midway through the match without it affecting the other. With creator Media Molecule focusing its attention on PS4's boundless sandbox dreams, Little Big Planet's whimsical weave hero deserved his Super Mario 3D World moment. Sackboy, a big adventure, doesn't pull up any trees like its predecessors, but is instead a robust cooperative platformer with some memorable musical moments. With a cutesy DIY aesthetic and some surprisingly tight action, it excels in an area that Sony has often been accused of overlooking: fun for the whole family. There are a lot of great cooperative games out there that may appeal to couples. Playing a game together can be a fun, easy, and entertaining way to strengthen a relationship. Although most cooperative games feel great with friends, titles like Haven make the experience feel even more fulfilling for couples. The story follows a pair of lovers who have ended up on a mysterious planet and must coexist with the alien life found there. It's relaxing, engaging, and has moments of excitement sprinkled in via exploration and battles. The storyline is engaging and feels realistic. There's a lot to enjoy with Haven, and it looks beautiful on the PS5. If you've ever owned a toy car or two, Hot Wheels Unleashed will hold some appeal. Coming from Milestone, the studio known for its motorbike racing titles like MotoGP and Ride, this game sees the Italian team go in a brand new direction. This is a colorful arcade racer, pitting those die-cast vehicles against each other on that famous bright orange track across various settings. The handling is excellent and provides some surprisingly competitive and gratifying racing, while the courses are treacherous, winding things that see you driving on the ceiling and through the air. The game is impressively robust too, with a big campaign, split screen and online multiplayer, a full track editor, and hundreds of cars to collect. If you're a fan of Hot Wheels, or just arcade racing games generally, this is worth checking out. For pretty much everybody outside of the United States, FIFA is the ultimate football game. When it comes to American football, however, no franchise can compete with Madden, with more than 40 different editions being released in the 3.5 decades or so since the series first made its debut back in 1988. Thanks to the power of the PlayStation 5 and its peers, this year's edition is one of the most visually impressive yet and features an improved co-op franchise mode. Sadly, like all annual sports sim titles and an increasing amount of modern video games in general, the microtransactions in Madden NFL 24 are both excessive and intrusive. Granted, the game can still be enjoyed without spending any additional money and is a must-play for those who love American football, but the aggressive nature of its monetization does tarnish the overall experience quite a bit. The force is strong with this one. While there have been several installments in the past, LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is the culmination of TT Games' previous efforts. Encompassing all 9 mainline movies, this is a huge platformer adventure featuring all the most iconic sequences you remember from the big screen. When you're not progressing the story, it turns into a sandbox, letting you explore myriad locations from the films and play as one of hundreds of characters. Its gameplay is also more modern than the older LEGO Star Wars titles, sharpening up shooting and making combat more exciting. There's so much to see and do here that Star Wars fans need not play anything else for a while. Though most games tend to lean more toward online multiplayer these days, players can always rely on sports sims to keep things on the couch. To be clear, MLB The Show 23 does feature online co-op, but it also allows for up to 4 players to team up locally without the need for an internet connection, making this a must-play game for local multiplayer-loving baseball fans. Thanks to the power of the console and the skill of the development team, couch co-op fans can enjoy one of the best local multiplayer experiences around right here with this game. It features a variety of different game modes too, though it's important to note that not all of these support local multiplayer. When you think of co-op games, one should spring to mind immediately: It Takes Two. This action-adventure is from the makers of Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons and a Way Out, and sees you and a partner take on the role of an estranged couple. Turned into dolls by their daughter's tears, you and a friend must go on a wildly imaginative, endlessly varied adventure to return to normal. Constantly presenting you with new puzzles and ideas, each as good as the last, you'll never grow weary of this brilliant game, playable locally or online. For the most part, the first wave of annual sports games to hit the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles were a little underwhelming and struggled to justify their $70 price tags. Thankfully, however, the following years brought with them several great sports titles that gave players a much better idea of what exactly the next-gen consoles were truly capable of. One such title was NBA 2K24. To be clear, it's far from a reinvention of the wheel, and the manipulative microtransactions are just as problematic as ever. However, the improved graphics and mechanics make this a must-play for any serious basketball fan. Even those with only a passing interest in the sport should be able to take enjoyment from the game's local multiplayer options, which allow for up to 4 players at any given time. There's a snobbery among enthusiasts that suggests Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, without tightly animated sprites and mind-boggling button combos, is a lesser fighting title. Be that as it may, few brawlers have the sheer scope and scale of what's on display here. With an ever-rotating ladder of invented towers to tackle, a sprawling single-player campaign, and an RPG-inspired loot system that lets you tailor all of the title's characters to your tastes, NetherRealm Studios may not have produced an audience-attracting esport here, but it has delivered a damn good time. Nobody Saves the World borrows a lot of its ideas from other dungeon crawlers, but manages to put them all together in a way that feels both fresh and unique. The gameplay is challenging but fair in the way that players are forced to constantly switch up their loadout ensures that they are a lot less likely to become complacent or bored during a run. Although the game didn't feature local co-op at launch, the feature was eventually patched in after a couple of months to coincide with the game's PlayStation and Switch releases, allowing 2 friends to play together on a single console. The experience is every bit as enjoyable as online co-op, if not more so, with players now able to vent their frustrations a lot easier due to their partner sitting right beside them on the couch. The PS5's first native fighting game has set the bar very, very high. Guilty Gear Strive is a superb brawler, bolstered by jaw-dropping visuals and the best online netcode that we've ever experienced in a fighting game. A relatively small but brilliantly diverse character roster allows for a deep and hugely rewarding experience, while accessible gameplay mechanics on a base level pave the way for new players. A stunning beat-em-up backed by an incredible heavy rock soundtrack. Released in mid-2022, the definitive edition of Outward brought with it a wide range of improvements, helping to turn what was already an enjoyable co-op RPG experience into an even better one. From combat to difficulty, everything is now much more well-balanced, with the visuals also being noticeably improved. While there are certainly better co-op RPGs out there, those looking for a great two-player PS5 game to share with a friend could definitely do a lot worse. It's not a game to be played with young children on account of its violent combat, but older players may well prefer some of its darker and more mature themes. After Gran Turismo's sports-centric approach, Gran Turismo 7 returns to the revered RPG format of developer Polyphony Digital's long-running simulation racing series. With a slick driving model and hundreds of cars to collect, it's the addictive Pokémon GT Cafe that will keep franchise faithfuls occupied for hours on end. And for competitive players, the online approach innovated by GT Sport remains intact, making for the most complete Gran Turismo in a generation. The cherry on top is that the entire thing is playable in PSVR 2, with minimal loss in picture quality. It's incredibly immersive, and among the best games you can play with Sony's headset. While Overcooked may second not be a traditional split-screen game, it's still one of the best local co-op titles available on the PS5. This release is an absolute blast and an ideal family game thanks to its wholesome yet hectic theme. The action all takes place on one screen, but each player is free to control their own character. To succeed in Overcooked 2, players will need to work together to overcome a hazardous kitchen while simultaneously balancing a variety of foods and recipes to cook a spectacular dish. It's a ton of fun in a group and can be pretty challenging to boot, particularly if not everybody is on the same page. The Quake series is one that should need no introduction, at least not for gamers of a certain age. Together with other popular FPS series like Doom, Wolfenstein, and Unreal, ID Software's multiplayer first-person shooter helped to shape and define the genre. Much to the delight of fans, a remastered version of the franchise's debut installment was released for the PlayStation 5 in late 2021 and is every bit as enjoyable as the original. While it's undeniable that the FPS genre has come a long way in the 2.5 decades since the game's original release, the remastered version of Quake still oozes class and will evoke fond memories of classic 90s multiplayer shooters in those old enough to remember them. Better still, players will be able to play the game locally with up to 3 of their friends, either in co-op or deathmatch modes. As is the case with some of the other great titles from Supermassive Games, the Quarry features a somewhat unique couch co-op mode. Rather than players each having their own controller, they'll instead be assigned a different role, with players having to pass the gamepad among one another depending on whose character is in the hot seat. When it comes to gameplay, the Quarry is incredibly similar to the studio's other interactive games, though stands apart from its Dark Pictures anthology series. This arguably makes it much more accessible and a lot more in keeping with the developer's breakthrough title Until Dawn. It's a solid enough game with more than 100 endings, so can be a great way to pass the time with friends. Those looking for a more modern 2D Sonic experience may prefer 2017 Sonic Mania or the 2023 title, Sonic Superstars. The former is arguably the better of the two games, but was never actually treated to a proper PS5 port and limits the local co-op action to just 2 players rather than 4. In addition to accommodating more players locally, Superstars just feels a lot more like a game that was designed with multiplayer in mind. The fact that Sonic Superstars appears to have come at the expense of a true Sonic Mania sequel is a little disappointing, as the single-player experience on offer here struggles to compare to the one in Sonic Mania. However, for those looking for the best local co-op games to play with their friends and family, Sonic Superstars is well worth a look. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 is a brilliant remake of 2 incredibly impactful games. The skateboarding series might have been scraping its knees for a while, but this new version puts it right on track, updating the PS1 classics to modern standards while keeping that old-school, arcadey magic alive. The PS5 version is a great update, too, enhancing the title with super smooth performance, 4K resolution, reduced loading, and some subtle usage of DualSense features. If you're a longtime fan, this is pure joy. The TMNT franchise led the way when it came to side-scrolling brawlers back in the day, with many considering Turtles in Time to be one of the best arcade games ever made. It's for this reason that fans of the genre were so excited for the release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, and boy did it live up to the hype. Shredder's Revenge is an expertly crafted love letter to a bygone era of gaming and a must-play for any fan of the genre. Sadly, the PlayStation version is limited to 4 local players rather than the 6 that some of the other platforms are able to accommodate, but this should still be more than enough for all but the most popular of players. Street Fighter VI puts the series back on the map. Following the comparably dismal launch of Street Fighter V, this iteration of Capcom's Fighter is the most robust package yet, catering to both competitive and casual players brilliantly. New mechanics add more strategy to fights, different control schemes level the playing field for newcomers, and the online play is seriously smooth. Add to that the incredibly high-effort single-player World Tour mode, in-depth tutorials, a multitude of fun ways to fight, and a vibrant roster of familiar and new characters, and you have one of the best fighting games in recent memory. Gearbox Software's Borderlands games have always had fantastic local co-op support, and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which serves as a spin-off, of sorts, continues this rich tradition. Like the most recent Borderlands game, it supports 4-player split-screen on next-gen consoles, which can be an absolute blast on a large enough screen. It also works well for those looking to play locally with just a single friend rather than 3, as they'll now have the choice between either a vertical or horizontal split. Though it still suffers from a lot of the same flaws that besiege the main series, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands can still be a lot of fun and offers near-endless replayability thanks to the wide array of weapons on offer and its newly refined class system. The Coiled Captors DLC is a bit of a letdown, so players may want to save themselves a few bucks and spring for the standard edition of the game rather than the chaotic Great Edition. There are a few strong options on PS5 for rally fans, but if you're looking for the genuine article, WRC10 is where it's at. This is the latest officially licensed rally racer, featuring the courses, cars, and drivers you recognize from the real motorsport. Importantly, though, the game itself is rollicking good fun. It really captures the danger and thrill of streaming through narrow tracks, always a hair's breadth from disaster. An in-depth career mode will keep you going for a long time, and it's supplemented with single rallies, online play, and historical events. Excellent support of DualSense features is the cherry on top of a very tasty, messy cake. The World Rally Championship Series has never quite reached the same heights as some of the more established racing game franchises, although WRC Generations arguably comes pretty close. The game looks great and, much like many of its predecessors, supports both online and local multiplayer. Despite split-screen functionality being included, however, the inability to alter the orientation of the split in the screen may frustrate some players, as too might the 2-player limit. Those only wishing to play with a single friend or family member should be fairly satisfied with the experience that's on offer though, particularly if they prefer a more rugged driving experience. The Ascent is a compelling mix, take punchy twin-stick shooter combat, throw in some loot and RPG elements, and place it in a shockingly detailed cyberpunk setting, and you've got a pretty great recipe. The good news is that it's just as tasty as it sounds, especially when played in local or online co-op with some pals. The action and mission design can be a little repetitive at times, but the core loop can keep you engaged for hours. Following a 1-year absence, the WWE 2K series made a triumphant return in early 2022. Granted, WWE 2K22 is far from the best wrestling game ever made, but it's considerably better than anything else that the WWE 2K series has had to offer in almost a full decade. WWE 2K23 continues this upward trend, improving on its predecessor in just about every measurable way. Though the majority of game modes are tailored towards the single-player experience, exhibition matches allow for all manner of multiplayer mayhem. There are a ridiculous number of match types available, with players also able to tweak and change the rules and settings to their liking. For wrestling fans, this really is a must-play title. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me, and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far, and until next time, bye.